Well, if you listen to bands like Grouplove or Family Force 5 or Lecrae or the Eli Young Band, right? That was a country band that you worked with as well. Then you're gonna want to listen to today. So let's welcome to the show Isaac Deitz today, and then we'll just throw in applause right here, pretend like there's a live audience. So welcome to the show. I'm excited to.
Hey, thank you.
I'm excited to finally get to meet you. The way I first was introduced to some of your content was early on. Do you still go by Tubbo at all?
I never officially wanted to go by Tubbo, but that's what Family Force 5, the band I worked with a lot, had gangster names for every member of their band, and I was their sixth member of their band, and so I had to have a gangster name. So the singer's dad came up with that one.
Okay, so I think that ties into one of the things I want to make sure we handle that I think is a specialty of yours, whether you've realized it or not. As we've been making films in Northeast Ohio, feature films, and as that grows, you obviously have to deal with more and more artists and creatives. And if people know anything about creatives, getting them to kind of follow an order and consistently stay still and do all the things you need for certain shots is not easy. You did a web series with them, with a band that is, they're more than just a regular band. They're known for being kind of crazy and all around the place too.
Right, yeah.
What would you say your secret is to be able to work with creatives that, can be very out there and get them to focus into actually being able to tell a narrative and those types of things? Because that's a huge feat.
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I feel like as a director or somebody that's leading a crew in any kind of way, even if it's an assistant director or something like that, one of the things that really helps me is if I communicate clearly what the goal is to whoever I'm overseeing, then it kind of becomes their goal as well. But if I just say put your hand on your head or walk over there, that's different than going this is what the goal is for all of this. And if I have you walking over there, it's going to be funny because your character usually wouldn't walk over there and or something like that. So one that I thought of on the top of my head, one of the members of that web series I did, Fatty, he had huge muscles, big strong guy, and I was I would love to see him in Heelys. So I got Heelys that we could attach to his shoes, and we don't show his Heelys. They're having an argument the whole time, and then at the end it's okay, I'm TO'd, and then he Heelys away from the argument. And I just thought that was a funny idea. And as soon as that was communicated to him, why that would be funny, he did the work to learn how to Heely.
That's awesome. Those types of things. So you're saying it's. Would you say you get into the nitty gritty of tell them the point of the shot, or are you more no, let me just keep it at the point of this scene, or do you feel communicating the goal of the entire music video is better for some people? Yeah,
so I don't like to. I do like to do the big goal instead of the micro things, because once people know what the overall goal is of something, then I think that's when their creative juices go, okay, objectively I know what I'm supposed to do, and then I know that this doesn't contradict that thing, so I could add that. And so that's where a lot of their improving came in, or where their jokes would start adding jokes because they knew the overall goal. One of the episodes I could think of is, I think it's episode 19 of The Really Real Show, was the cutest baby contest, where the lead singer enters his baby into a fair with a cutest baby. So I heard over the loudspeaker hey, the cutest baby contest is happening, and I said, you have to submit your baby, this would be great. So he submits them, and then at the end they find out that everybody in the contest wins the cutest baby. But then right before we walked into the bus, I said to each person, I said, okay, you're happy he won first prize, and you're mad that everyone won first prize, and you're oblivious to that. and then as soon as they knew what their role was in the argument, they just stuck to like, no, every baby won first prize, and it's like, no, my baby won first prize, and then like another person saying like, yeah, yes, and so it really helped, and a lot of those jokes came naturally because it was really like creating a structure for them to play in. If that makes
cool.
Sense.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess too, it's kind of like you're saying, if you know the way that the artist works and that they can do those types of things, give them space to play in the area where you need the story to go. That makes sense. I think that also brings up a good point. You said episode 19. You're like that's a lot of content to do while you guys you're on the road for most of this too, right? Are you?
Yeah.
So you're editing, you're doing this on the road, and then you did music videos for them as well, which is like a big thing that you do. That was all. How do you keep consistently doing that type of work? Doing putting out the amount of content you're able to, and have it be entertaining still.
Yeah, that's one thing is I think some of the best art is stuff that's not like overthought. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times, like now that I'm doing a lot of films and stuff and hanging out with a lot of filmmakers, a lot of times people will be like, hey, can you read my script, my feature script before I make it? And they've done like, so they've passed it around to everybody they know for feedback. And it's like, when are you as an artist going to just own this and say like, I'm happy with this and I'm going to make this. Wow. And also know that like the film's going to be rewritten as you're filming and then also as you're editing. So like, don't overthink it. What is it? Bradley Cooper said it's Inside the Actor's Studio. He was asked like, how much do you improvise and how much do you like plan? And he says, you plan so you could improvise.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So for us, like, we had a good structure of what the characters were for the Really Real show. So when it was a weekly thing we were doing, it was pretty easy to be like, oh, let's go grocery shopping and then see what those characters do while they're grocery shopping. And as soon as you have like a character and the actor knows what the character essentially is and thinks about the world and what their worldview is, then all they have to do is walk into the grocery store, and if they're like a complainer, they're going to find everything to complain about, and that's going to have a joke in it. And then if one person's just like thankful for everything, they're going to look at everything and say, this is wonderful, this is beautiful. But then you could literally just like go, let's play basketball, let's go to this, let's do a cutest baby contest, and realize that it's going to throw you like stories and ideas you never thought you would come up with, because you're actually, it's easier to steer a moving ship than a still one, for me at least. And so there was times that it was exhausting for me. That was my only job, is to put out something every week. I did take them more seriously than like a vlog. This was like also like the first week or first year of YouTube. Yeah. So like at a certain point, we were like number 76 most subscribed of all time.
Well, that's awesome.
With 8,000 subscribers. So like now, like to be in the top 100, you need 1 billion.
Yeah. So, and they still won't even list yet.
But yeah, like I definitely took it seriously because I knew since I was 10 I wanted to be a filmmaker. So any opportunity to use my camera and edit, I took it like, I want this to be something that's like art and like something I want to show my kids and something I'm going to be proud of. And so I like definitely overthought it more than I should have, but I think, or not overthought it, but like I
overproduced.
Yeah, I worked really hard on them, and then now that there's a word for video blogs, it's like, oh, you just did a video blog, but now when I hear it, it's like, oh, it was a web series. So
no, I think
it's like a weird line.
No, and that's why it still kind of like stands out in my mind, because it was almost like a mix of like that early vlog stuff. Totally different characters though, because you're dealing with a band, so it's already just generally interesting to the audience, and kind of like the Office as well. It was like that kind of a vibe, and you kind of like you started to like, even when you showed up to like shows and concerts for them, it felt like it was like, oh, I get them, I kind of know what they were doing, like maybe a couple weeks ago. And that was some early stuff though. That was some of the early stuff, and the other part of that I want to talk about as well, because you were growing an audience with it. You were saying, through the YouTube, but another part of it is that a lot of the concerts and the venues that Family Force 5 would play at were Christian venues, right? And so
Right.
I'm sure you had to assume, hey, Christians are going to be viewing this. Did that put what kind of pressure does that put on you? That hey, if I put the wrong thing in this episode, there might be backlash, or there might be people.
Oh, right.
Did that phase you too much, or no?
That's a great question. So the really real show, because I'm going to assume maybe a good majority of people listening right now may have not seen the really real show.
Right. We'll put clips up. They'll see clips.
Sure. Yeah. So the really real show was made for a Christian band. It was a web series for a Christian band that was a comedy, and there was a lot of sarcasm in it, and there was insult humor and things like that. And so we did get a lot of comments and messages and stuff like that saying you shouldn't treat your brother and you shouldn't treat your bandmates like this. You shouldn't treat your family members like this. You shouldn't talk to each other like this. And some people just didn't get it. But that's anytime you make art, people aren't going to get it. There's going to be a certain part of your audience that just doesn't understand what you're doing, and unless it's the large majority, then it's nothing to worry about. But sometimes there's the large majority, and it's well, they just don't understand art. And it's well, you're not communicating well.
Well, if you're not communicating to most of them, then you don't understand the art.
Yeah, totally.
No, I think that's something I think you did something too that was generally entertaining. It wasn't. I think obviously you've got your target demographic that you're kind of aiming for. You understand, hey, our key base is going to be here, but you understand people outside of that are going to be able to see it, and they may want to, and that could encourage them to go to a show. And so, I think just part of that, do you consider kind of the audience a ton when you're doing it, or are you the kind of guy that's... So let me put it this way. I've talked to a few different people that are hey, I've got my audience in mind. I don't know if even I'll like it, but I know they will. And then you got other guys that say, I don't know if I really understand my audience, but I do know that I just put out what I like and people seem to watch it. Where do you feel like you fall? Are you on that spectrum at all, or how would you explain it?
Yeah, I really like that question. For me now and for me back then, I feel are different artists.
Okay.
And then also it depends on so if you hire me to make a commercial for a dog food commercial, I will be thinking about you as a client to be okay, well, this is my job at this point.
Right.
I try and really make a fine line between my art and then my marketing, in the sense of when I make something for somebody else, I need to know that that's what that is. But for me, when I'm making art, I'm really just exploring my own subconsciousness and what's underneath. And I feel now when I make films for me, or just go with my intuition the whole time, when the product is done, I could look at it and it's healed me. It's made me understand the certain versions of myself and stuff. And I really believe in the whole idea of you can't serve art and money at the same time. And it's not a binary, but it's more of a crossfade where it's a teeter-totter where you could fill a cup full of art or money or mix it. Yeah. But they can't live in the same space. And so when I've made films no money on the table at all, and I just go, I need to make this because I had a really traumatic phone call with a family member, and I just drive to Savannah and I make something, then I look at it later and I'm oh, that was just going on, that's what I learned from this and stuff. So I think each project calls for different things, but for me now, I don't really care for feedback. I used to be the guy that I was talking about earlier, where I'd send my script to everyone I knew. Yeah. Oh, hey, you do film? Could I send you my script? But now I'm I look at it and I go, is this up to par with what I like? Is this? Do I enjoy this? Am I enjoying this would I watch this? Would I watch it again if somebody else made it?
Right.
And then also, like, when I show you my art, I want to know what you connected with, but like more of like in a natural, organic way, as if we watched a movie together.
Yeah.
I want to hear you gasp. I want to hear you laugh. I want to hear you talk about what it reminded you of or made you think about when it's over. But I'm not like really trying to get like a survey filled out when it's done.
Right.
I want to be like in the room with you watching it. And then you know how like you watch a movie with somebody, or you watch a movie with somebody, and then you could kind of feel when they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you could kind of feel like, I feel like that applies with your own films too. So when you make a film, you just pay attention to the audience, you can feel when they're liking it and when they're bored and when they're not liking it. Like, I'm finishing up a feature doc this week.
Nice.
And and so I showed a bunch of people a while ago, and there's one section that I kind of knew that I was a little bit bored at, and I felt the audience, and I could tell that they were a little bored at, and so now I'm like working on that, but they didn't have to say anything.
Right.
They didn't tell me, hey, re-edit this or anything like that.
Right.
They might not even know specifically like, oh, re-edit this.
Yeah.
But it just like the pacing of it wasn't there, so like I'm just gonna go back to that scene and do it. So
yeah.
So yeah.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, we do like feature like narratives, and so we did one.
Cool.
What was it? Not last year, because nothing happened last year. We released one. I think it was 2 years ago, and somehow we got like 600 people to end up showing up for the premiere night. And it was just like a good area, and there was just like nothing else going on right near this college, so it just ended up filling up. But it was the coolest experience, because then I was able to sit there and like, I could watch the movie, sure, but I've seen the movie 1,000 times at that point. Then it's just you're sitting and surrounded by all the people judging your soul, essentially.
Oh, absolutely.
But like,
especially if you put your soul into it.
Yes, yes. Know? And it's just like, it's like you're saying, you're putting like the things that you're processing. I have a writing partner that once said, he's like, you know what I like about you is that like you do movies about stuff you're processing at the time, not stuff you feel like you already have the answer to. And which I think ties into what you were saying, but I think that's part of what we're doing. You know, we're trying to process this whole world, and so it's like, oh, this movie will help me process it, like a big thought experiment. But when you're doing that, you're also putting that out there for people to see. So yeah, absolutely, it is great to be able to get that feedback, and it's tough to see with social media and putting that stuff out. And another struggle I want to make sure we talk about with the art, because I think a big focus of what you do, at least as far as it you know, like from what I've seen and I've followed, is also the like the music videos and working with the different bands that you've created. You've made a lot of different music videos and a lot of different styles, and you understand now, if you're writing a story, you have a script or whatever, and you take that to the final completion, you know you've got the original idea in you as well as that final product is in you. But when it's somebody else's art, like somebody else's story that they put the passion into the song, do you feel you have like what's that transition like to when you have to take over and understand kind of what's at the core of it to be able to bring that into the video? Or you know, does that make sense? Or am I just I'm sometimes terrible at wording, which is why I make film.
Yeah, let me take a stab. For me, when I make a music video, I am really proud of the variety of music videos I've gotten to make. I feel like not many of them are similar, which I'm really happy with. Like I've done some one takes, I've done like very visual effects heavies one, I've done some like reality documentary kinds, I've done montage and then performance and stuff, and high concept and basic stuff and whatnot. And for me, I think what has made the variety become very natural is, for me, like let's say you have a song. If you have a song, you send it to me. How I see it as my job as a music video director is for me to explore your song with my art form, with my medium of art. And so if I'm exploring it, I don't need to know what the song means to you. In fact, I don't really want to.
Wow.
I want to know what it means to me through processing, you know, my art form. You know, like like you were saying earlier, you process through film.
Right.
I do that too. Like for me, like film is my first language, and I mean that seriously in a certain way because I was speaking in English when I was a kid, but as far as processing my thoughts and feelings, I started doing that with a camera when I was 10 years old.
Right.
I would literally set up my camera and journal and like just talk. That's actually why I made this contraption here. Is I have been like almost daily setting down the camera and just talking about what I think. And
wow,
I haven't even posted. I have hours and hours of that. Honestly, I have a whole shelf full of VHS tapes, 8mm tapes, and 100 terabytes of hard drives of like everything I've ever filmed. I'm gonna do a back one day about all that, but yeah, like film for me is like it's how I process my feelings in the world around me. It wasn't until like 4 years ago that I had like developed emotional intelligence enough with English to be able to like speak my feelings and stuff like that in a deeper way. You know, like sure, I was able to say when I was sad and all that. I wasn't a robot, but I was very left brained in any other world, but with cameras. So yeah, like I just explore with somebody else's song, and I go with how it's making me feel, what it's making me think, what. If it feels cool, what do I feel like sounds like that? Or what do I think looks like that sound?
Yes, okay.
And going with that, so
still at the beginning of the project, it's always starting, whether you've written it or not, you still want to create that original spark inside of you to be able to bring that to the end fruition. Whether you're writing it or whether you've already been given that initial thing, you still create it.
I actually don't take other people's ideas.
No, I mean, as like, in somebody giving you a song.
What I'm saying is, like, if a band comes to me and says, I have an idea for a song, I actually go like, you know, there's other directors out there. Like, I am a writer-director in the sense of, like, I want to explore. I'm not trying to, like, people can take that any way they want. But,
no.
But actually, the one video that I did do that was somebody else's original concept was Manchester Orchestra.
Okay.
I just recently did it. They were like my favorite band.
Nice.
And so when he said, hey, I have an idea for a song, it was a very loose idea.
Yeah.
And so I did feel like I still was able to create in that way, but I'm not a good director with other people's ideas. I'm too self-conscious. Like, if you gave me a script, the whole time I'd be thinking, did I do what he wanted me to do? Did I meet his expectations? Is he going to be disappointed when he sees this? Like, so I'm just maybe
Note to
like
self: never hire Isaac.
Other people in that. What's that?
Note to self: never hire Isaac for a film.
Just if you wanted me to do a film, just like kind of give me a basic thing, and then I can run with it.
Give you a scene. So I think one thing I want to make sure we hit on, just because we're coming to the close on our time pretty soon here, but kind of making those connections. I mean, I know you're saying you had kind of a project. You started off. I think it kind of shows you. I would assume you connected with the band in some way, started making music videos, or started making those consistent videos for them, being their essentially like their full-time or full-time videographer, and then grew from there. That's what I would assume. But does that track with kind of what happened? How did you make those initial connections? I feel a lot of artists struggle with getting started doing their job.
So this is I see some YouTube videos here and there about like tutorials on how to make it as a filmmaker, or you see it like show up like, how do I get paid as a filmmaker and stuff like that. And all the film clips I've been in over 10 years and stuff like that on Facebook and whatnot, and they all complain about like doing something to get marketing, where it's like, hey, can you do this video for me because it's going to give me some marketing and stuff. That's been my MO since I was 16, and it's worked very well. The reason I've worked for Grouplove is because when I was 16, I did a free video for a band called Last Broadcast, and the singer of Last Broadcast ended up joining Grouplove as the bassist.
Oh, wow.
So, like, and it's funny because, like, when I was, like, 15 and I was doing videos, I had a website before YouTube came out that was live videos for bands. So if they came traveling, and I would contact their label or their managers and say, hey, I see you're coming into my town. I have a few cameras. I'll show up I'll make a live video, and it just has to live on my website. So there was a time where if it didn't exist on my website or this other person's, it didn't exist on the internet.
Wow.
So it was really cool. Like, of course, like if you're a Coldplay, it was a different thing. But like as far as like smaller bands,
No, yeah,
like,
yeah.
even Family Force 5, there's nowhere to find a live video of Family Force 5 before YouTube.
Wow.
People just didn't think to upload those sorts of things. So
Yeah.
I literally, when I met Family Force 5, I did it because I was touring with a band called House of Heroes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I filmed them doing live shows every once in a while, anytime they came through.
Yeah.
I'd do it for free.
Yeah.
And then eventually their label's like, hey, we want to buy those videos to put on the CD.
Wow.
Just have it as an enhanced CD, if you remember those.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after that, when House of Heroes came and I filmed another live video for them,
Right.
I said, hey, this whole YouTube thing that's coming out, what if we did weekly videos? Wouldn't that be something? And then they said, yeah, I like the idea. So I started touring with them, and Family Force 5 was the headliners.
Yeah.
And so when I headlined with, or when I've toured with House of Heroes,
Yeah.
I met Family Force 5 and I said to Family Force 5, hey, what if we did these weekly videos? You know, and I actually said to them, hey, I'm going to film a live video for my website. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So I was filming a live video for Drama Queen. And then by the end of the tour, they're like, hey, we want you to tour with us. And so the rest is history in that sense. So
Okay.
I really believe in, like, if you have any pattern recognition and an ability to see trajectory,
Yeah.
there are a lot of strategies for doing free work.
Right.
And those strategies do pay off. And here's my rule for that.
Yeah.
I don't do films that I'm not interested in some way or another.
Yeah.
There's people that try to charge for certain film, for certain work just on principle.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I don't charge less than $500. I don't get out of bed less than $500. And it's like, I love film too much. Like, if you like money and that's your goal in life, like, cool.
Yeah.
But for me, my goal is to be making films more than not making films.
Yeah.
And if that means less money, I'm so fine with that. Like, you know, I'm trying to be a filmmaker. I'm not trying to be a businessman.
Yeah.
And that's, like, you know, it's ended up working out that it's been great for my business. I've been freelance for about 18 years now.
Wow. No, I think that's really awesome. I think the other thing I want to make sure we point out to the people that are trying to get started, because I think you're already on a path. I don't know how often you got to deal with other people that are trying to get started, but I think the common thing, and the thing that you've said that's inherent in everything that you've said here, is you're going to still finish the projects that, like, you want to still put out content for people to be able to see. And there's a lot of people that like one stage of the process, like, they don't realize, they think they like filmmaking. When it comes down to it, it's like they legitimately just like cinematography. And so as long as the shot looks good, they don't care what the story is. They don't want to put out, like, a final product. There's some people that genuinely just love the audio design. They think they like filmmaking because they've heard about Foley, and that's part of filmmaking. But there's so many people that need to realize, if you don't like finishing the project, I would say hook up with people that can finish the project. And or if you can finish stuff, like you were saying, I feel like you get so much more content out. And that's, like, inherent in what you're saying, I think, is the like, you're putting out content. You're finalizing it, and when it's good enough at a certain point, you need to move on to the next project and start processing the next thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you can say something to those people that just need it to be perfect before it's absolutely, before it's done, and so they never finish any project and then lose that steam, what would you say to those people that are kind of stuck in that rut of starting a new project, not having the steam to finish it, and then starting something else?
Yeah, I know that, like, if you have a film that's even 99% done, let's say you have it completely done, but you never exported it, you will learn more from an exported film than an unexported film. Wow. Or at least from my experience. The more I learn, like, 60% from a film if it's exported. And then the rest of it's, like, while I'm making it. But it's really the exported thing and showing it to another person. You can't get funnier as a comedian unless you're telling those jokes to a human being, because you won't be able to hear and see if they're laughing and see that
Right.
Immediate gratification of like, did what I'm trying to communicate get communicated to this person?
Yeah.
And if it didn't, then you tweak and you change and stuff like that. So if you're embarrassed by something that you've made, you won't be over a certain amount of time. I was thinking, you won't be making films that embarrass you over a certain amount of time if you keep working, is what I'm saying. You might still be embarrassed by that film, but I think the big thing is like, learn why you want to do film at all. I think right now, film. Okay, so for example, like scissors, there's a million ways to use scissors, or like, let's say a knife. You could whittle with a knife, you could cut steak with a knife, you can kill somebody with a knife.
Not that we weren't suggesting that, though, just so
No. But, so just because I use a knife and you use a knife doesn't mean that have the same goals or we're doing the same thing.
Right. Right.
And I'm not trying to make a hierarchy statement here. It's just more of like, if your goal, film has turned into the new like guitar at the fire kind of thing, where it's still like, it's starting to become cool if you're good at doing film, because especially like director of photographies are like the guitars, the lead guitars of a band. Yeah. And so when they make a film, the one I've worked with some before that like seem like they only want to do guitar solo the whole time and not serve the story. And they're really they're only using you so they could film a few shots for their demo reel. Yes. And so it's like, that's cool. That's your goal. Right. I like to know up ahead. I could usually tell by a certain amount of time, especially after working with those people, I could kind of tell, oh, this person's for the same reason I am. They're using these scissors to cut this piece of paper, and that's what I'm trying to do too. Yeah. So this is going to be a good thing. So I try not to like work with people that have different goals than me. Yeah, it's great. Because like most people, I still don't understand why people think to put a car in a 2-car garage. I'll never understand putting a car in a garage, because this is a 2-car garage, and most people's goals with a garage is to put a car in it. Like a weatherproof, made for the weather vehicle. And of course, if it's snowing and all that stuff, but like, you have all the space to do so much other stuff with. So like, when I meet filmmakers, they want to use a camera for something I don't even remotely think about, like where it's like getting some kind of social clout or something like that. And so to me, the people that don't finish their films, they don't export their films, they're 90% done, they never do anything, is because their goal with film is actually to try and get like people to like them more. And when they make something that's not good, they don't want to release it, or I totally fine to not release anything. Make something, export it, put it on a folder, and watch it in 20 years. Don't show anyone. I'm not saying you have to show people always, but finish it. Make sure you can watch it later, because you're going to be able to calculate your growth and see your growth and stuff like that. But so people don't finish it because they're so embarrassed, because their goal is to actually get like social recognition for film. To me, the reason I make films, the reason I've made films since I was 10 years old, even though I didn't articulate it to myself, is like, I wanted to explore the reality around me with a camera. We are given this gift where like 150 years ago, film wasn't even invented yet. We haven't hit our 150-year mark. Wow. So 1888 is when film got invented. Okay, and then like nerd. 1830 or something like that is the first photograph of a human being. Wow. So let's say 1800, there was no way for you to see the back of your head at all. I guess if you took two mirrors, you could do two. So that's about it. But like, you can't see what you look like when you're walking around. up until like 150 years ago. So
Yeah.
human beings, so instead of the back of the head, they've never been able to see what they looked like even a year before.
Right.
Like, I'm looking at footage of me when I was 8 years old.
Right.
And I'm like, 150 years ago, humans never knew what their voice sounded like.
Right.
And so we have this really, I think, a gift. I'm so thankful for just being alive in the time of a camera, because once I figured out what a camera did when I was really young, I've always wanted to play with cameras, because it's like, whoa, that thing is it's such a gift. It's so cool. And so to me, like, every film I finish, whether I show it or not, is teaching me more about what cameras are capable of doing, what I'm capable of doing, and what the reality is around me. And so it's really cool. And so, like, some people don't realize it hasn't clicked with them yet, and that's fine.
Right.
But film for you, or even if you're not a filmmaker and you're just watching this and you're a painter or whatever, if you don't make art for yourself, I think you've lost the point of art. And I think that not that everything you make should be for yourself. I'm saying, like, you should have, every once in a while, make something for you. Make a little travel video. Do something for you and only you, just to know that if nobody likes your stuff, you still have the ability to make films.
Nice.
And it's not dependent on whether or not there's an audience that exists. Because if I was trapped on a desert island and I hopefully had a camera, I would figure out how to make little films for myself, and, or something,
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's one thing I want to make sure that we make clear that you said in there is just the working with people that have the same goals as you. That is, I mean, it's you do see it as soon as you get the process started, and that's where a lot of conflict will come from. And you can solve, I think, a lot of it when you figure out, is this person here for the clout? Are they here for friends liking that they're a filmmaker? Because as soon as they grab their Instagram video of it, they've gotten their achievement out of it. They've achieved their goal. They don't care if the project's finished at that point.
Totally.
So, I mean, you just... I mean, it seems obvious, but really what you said is a very big thing. If you find people that have the same goal as you, you can really tell better stories. All right, let's wrap this up with some just quick rapid fire ones. So just quick questions. I'll see if I can come up with them fast enough as, 1 2-sentence answers. That's all we're going for here. Just okay. So,
I'm a rambler, but I'll try it.
That's fine. All right, so
Twitter.
For the people that all right, for people who want to get started making music videos, what's something that you would say do today?
Make a music video for your favorite song right now. Don't even check anyone. Don't worry about copyright. Just make a music video for your favorite song.
Don't worry about copyright. That's what I took from that. No.
You don't have to post it. Just make it.
No, I know what you mean.
Like, are you gonna do your first music video for a client, or do you want to try it a few times and then do it?
No, that's true.
Play poker with your friends before you go to the casino. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't put all your chips in that.
That's great. That's great. All right. So for people who want to make connections, what would you say to them? If they have a specific goal that they want to accomplish, maybe it's not just that, but telling stories, and they want to work with certain people. What would you say to get them started down the path?
I think pay attention to people that are doing what you want to do and reach out to them. Also, don't go too far. To me, I'm not going to reach out to Spielberg or David Fincher. The thing is if you're a 6, learn from a 5 or learn from a 7 and teach a 5. And
are we talking hotness scale here, or are you just somebody who's
if you're at level 6 on what you accomplishment of film or skill, don't try and learn from a 10. Learn from a 7, because the 10's going to say things that you aren't capable of understanding yet. Yeah. And I apply that to myself too. If I sent my first feature script to Aaron Sorkin, he would have given me notes that I wouldn't be able to comprehend. Yes. So find people a little bit ahead of you and reach out to them in just find people with your same goals and go after them and
that's
network. But
that's really really helpful. And then as far as I I don't think we get to touch on this, so I want to see if you have an answer. As far as inspiration for, because you do a lot of, like you talked about a little bit, the variety, different music videos that look very different. When you go for that general inspiration that you then translate into filmmaking, are there sources that you like to go to, like an art museum? Are you that kind of a guy, or what's where do you get your general visual inspirations from?
Oof.
Sorry, that was a big one.
I think it's changed over time, and I think that for me, 4 hours of uninterrupted time is one of the most inspiring things I think an artist could do. Just like saying, I'm not going to be interrupted. I'm going to focus on this, whether or not I'm putting stuff to paper or not, but letting your thoughts go deep. Turn off your phone, turn off your computer, because your thoughts might get deeper, and then you get a ping, your text, and then you're back up to the surface, and then you start going down, and then you go up. And so, like, allow yourself to go deep, and you get deep, big ideas. David Lynch says that there's all sorts of fish, all sizes of fish. They're like, fish are like ideas, or ideas are like fish. There's all different sizes of them, but the biggest ones are deeper. And I totally agree with that. And then also, like, just paying attention to, like, how you light your room, how you decorate your space. Because if you can't set deck your own space or light it in a way that makes your eyes feel good or you feel a certain way, it's you're going to be out of practice when you actually make a film. So that's
great. I thought that was an awesome note to kind of close on. Anything else that you want to say to aspiring storytellers? We'll put it that way. Not even just filmmakers, just that storyteller person. We've talked about it a lot, but what would you sum up to them if you wanted to do that little Gary V social media like sound bite? What would you say?
Well, I could tell you a little bit about, or a quick thing about what I've been thinking about the past week.
Yeah.
I think there's marketing and then there's art, and both like asking for attention. Marketing is saying, pay attention to what I'm making because I need to eat.
Yeah.
Art is saying, pay attention to what I'm making because I'm trying to communicate to future generations. And so the art you make will withstand, like, in 100 years, the art I made will survive and people will watch that. But the marketing stuff, the dog food commercials, don't.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Both of those are fine things to do with your camera.
Right.
But know what you're doing when you're doing it. Know that you're making an art piece or marketing. And if you think, I'm making this feature film to show my kids, then don't let other people tell you what it should be. Follow your intuition on that.
Right. No, that's great. All right, well, that was awesome. I was so glad to finally get to meet you. I've looked up to the content that you put out, and you know, that ability to be able to work with artists, and it was really great to be able to get to meet you. And thank you for coming on the show and sharing some of your wisdom that you've collected with some of the fours and the threes out there.
Oh yeah, this is really great. I can tell you really have a passion for film, and that we have like a same wavelength there.
Okay,
so,
cool. Cool, that's great.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. I love that you're doing like Ohio film. I'm a huge fan of people that don't see art as like a location-based thing. Yeah. And I think film is the only medium that like tries to propagate that, where it's like you have to be in LA or you have to be in Atlanta or you have to be in New York City.
Right.
But to me, like, I think the next generation of art is not location dependent, because you have terrain that Hollywood hasn't even touched yet.
Right.
You are filming in areas that nobody's even seen. And just like Francis Ford Coppola said in 1992, he said, the next generation of art is going to, and he actually says, a black girl from Ohio. So we could just say a girl or a person from Ohio is going to be the next generation with their dad's camera. That's what he said.
Wow.
And I think that's totally true. So like, keep doing that. I love that.
Can I say one thing off of that though? Because now you've gotten me worked up about that. But because that honestly, I was looking at some people that were kind of just doing the trajectory of Hollywood and how things have gone and just film in general. And essentially you get like a wave of like those like classic films that everybody loves right after a couple things happen. And one was right after the studios. There was a point at which the studios were so big, there were so few of them, that this might sound familiar because, well, I'll get to that. But studios were so big that directors were like seen as like nobody. It was essentially just like the guy that just did the story that the studio wanted. And people were not liking the films at that point. Then you also had the theaters were all being controlled by the studios, and there was essentially, like they had a monopoly on what movies were being seen. And then the other one I want to say was, I think it was... this is the worst term for it, but like a cancel culture-ish type thing. But it was the boards that would review the movies at that point and what was approved. And so
the gatekeepers.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
And you are getting to a point now where all three of those are back into full swing. And honestly, I think what's going to happen now is that you're going to get these different states that are going to start competing against each other rather than it being. Because like you're already getting a little bit, because it was Hollywood, then it was Hollywood, New York, then it was Hollywood, New York, and Georgia, and now I think it's even going to grow from there. So I'm excited. I think there's going to be some cool stuff.
100%.
Sweet.
I haven't heard that perspective.
That's great.
As far as I do know that there's a cause and effect going on and stuff, and I felt that with this thing, but I never connected it with the 1990 like indie thing coming from that. But even film noir came out of being B directors because the theaters would buy 2 movies and a B film, and the B film would get a very low budget, like where they could only afford like one light.
Right.
And so film noir came out of that. Like punk rock and hip hop came out of the same spirit. Yeah. And so I think like if film isn't 150 years yet, if you compare it to the medium of music, we haven't discovered punk rock and hip hop music yet. No. We're only dealing with like orchestra music where you need 90 people to play a song. Yes. And like it's like now you can actually play with your guitar in just you. And that's like something really cool. So I'm excited. I'm so stoked for that day to come.
I think we're right on the cusp of that stuff really starting to take off too. And that's why I think guys like you are really poised to be able to take advantage of that stuff as it changes. All right, we could talk about this stuff for hours and hours, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Maybe if we want to schedule time in the future, we can do one down the road, kind of catch up with you if you have some projects. All right, sweet. Well, Isaac Deitz, guys, go check him out. You've probably seen some of his stuff already, but definitely go online, check out his website, and if you're a band that wants a music video, you got to be able to just let go of your ideas, but Isaac's going to make you an awesome music video at the end of the day. So, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, I love talking to you. This is great.
All right. That's it. I'm cutting here.